This was just an experiment in candlelight. So I'm Madison, and I'm an interdisciplinary visual artist. I'm also a classical violin student. On this channel, I talk about art and everything else I do. This is my self-portrait masterclass. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to get a notification anytime I post a new video. Now, on to the video. So right now, I'm holding the camera at the right level. My face is not distorted at all, and unfortunately, the light is pretty boring. And so, I'm going to move around and see what happens as I distance myself from the light. And I believe that this is a much more interesting result compared to this. As you can see, here there's no shadow on my face whatsoever. But when I come here, there's a very interesting shadow. And there's also some kind of triangle forming under my left eye. As you can see right now, this is a very good light. And it makes sense. On the other hand, this is not a good light because it's boring, it has nothing interesting to say, and it's really flat. If I go here, this is very bad light. You should never ever take photographs like this. It simply makes no sense. If you're curious about the light that I'm using, here it is. It is a very bright light, and there's absolutely no filter whatsoever. There is something interesting that I could do with this light, and it will change the whole mood. It will be maybe a little bit like candlelight, and it is what you have seen in the first video that I posted. So let me show you how that is done. So you see this light here, and I have this humble paper mess right here. It is a sort of box made out of regular paper and glued. Well, it's a bit broken right now, but you can get the idea. And now I get to put this right on top of this. Carefully though, because I want to cover it entirely. And this results in a much softer light. And you can also see this on my face. The light is much more subtle, and it has a bit of a candlelight vibe to it. It's much softer. It is not at all as harsh as the other light was. And of course there is a huge difference when I come closer to it versus when I just go further away. And you can see this right now when I'm moving around. If I go close to it, it's quite interesting. If I move the camera around, many different things happen. This is something I would not do. In the beginning, the light was turned off. There was only the light from the lamp that I had. And right now you can see there's a huge difference because we have this. So this is the lamp right at the top, and of course it provides a very different kind of light. And I'm not such a great fan of this, to be honest. I think that light from above isn't the greatest light for portraits. And it's the same with light from below. Let me demonstrate. I'm going right under it. Unless this is your artistic purpose and it makes sense for your message. It is not an ideal form of lighting. And equally, I am going to demonstrate with the other one. This is another kind of very, very bad lighting. You do not want lighting below unless you're shooting a horror movie. Hello from a different place in my house. This is where I usually take all my self-portraits. Many photographers prefer to use complex lighting solutions and studios. That is not at all my case. I prefer to use the darkness. I often work at night, with all the lights off, except for my computer screen. Though I have done series that do not involve this particular setup, I enjoy the simple, plain, and elegant black background the most, because it showcases my disguises without any kind of distractions. But I do not always stick with it, because not every idea is suitable for this kind of setup. You can actually place yourself in any kind of environment. There are actually lots and lots of options in terms of light. You could use the computer screen like I do, or you could use the daylight, or maybe the sunset, or whatever other kind of light that is suitable for your project. There are many options. You should experiment with as many as possible until you discover the one that suits your series and, of course, the one that is most appropriate in terms of your style. So this is the light that I use for most of my self-portraits. I like a natural look. I don't like very bright colors. It's important to talk about this because I don't know what your style is, and perhaps some of this might be of interest to you. I have never hoarded gear. I never thought that was important. I've always used what I had. This is an important skill to develop. There are many photographers who are going to say that you need all those expensive cameras, all of those expensive lenses, and of course, if you can afford a better camera, it does make sense to buy one. But you can still be creative even if you do not have all of that expensive gear and all of those color filters. The light around me is turned off, and in front of me is my humble monitor. Well, it is a pretty big monitor, but what I'm going to do right now is something that any of you could replicate with your monitor at home, whether it's a laptop monitor or a computer with a larger screen such as mine. So this is just a new document in Photoshop. It's a white image. However, I have lots of layers on top of it. All these layers have different colors. So without expensive equipment, without camera filters and all of that sort of gear, you could actually experiment with light in many ways. You can control the intensity, you can control pretty much everything. Let's get started. As you can see, the light on me right now is pretty bright. Really bright light because, well, it's a white image. Right now I'm going to turn on the next color, which is gray. As you can see, the colors are a bit more muted, it's not as bright. This is a pretty light gray, but still, it's not as bright as the white, and I think it looks very interesting. As you can see, if you compare the two. If you want to add a little bit of color to all of this, you could easily just add a bit of gold, and suddenly you see the image is much more candlelit or yellow in its atmosphere. You could also go with other colors, such as a subtle rose. This is essentially a pink image opened on my entire monitor. It's more reddish pink, as you can see. You can also add green, and this is the look that a very light pastel green would give if you would use it as a light. And all of these are basically just colors I chose in Photoshop, and I just use them as sources of light through my monitor. You could also go with much brighter colors, such as this red. You can see this is a pretty big change. Red often has dramatic effects when used as a light source, but it is interesting, and if it speaks to your project, it makes sense. You could try orange, for instance. This is how orange looks. You could also try a bright yellow, and this is how it looks, even though it has a bit of more of a lime vibe, I guess. This is the actual lime. You could also try a darker green, which looks like this. You could also try blue and a darker kind of blue. This one is a pretty strong color, and again, just like the red, it creates some sort of effect that not everybody will like. But again, if it speaks to your project, use it. Again, a very bright color. This is pink. This is purple, some kind of plum. And now I'm going to show you what gradients do. I just made some gradients in Photoshop. This is one which is from red to teal. As you can see, this side of my face where the red is much more reddish, while this one is blue. I also tried a different kind of gradient. This one is purple and yellow. As you can see, if I get closer, it's much more visible. This part is purple, this part is yellow. I also tried one made of blue and red. So, because the blue and red combined are purple, it does have a bit of a purple effect. But essentially, it has a different colored effect. And you can look at my hands. If I take this one to this side, this one here, they're different colored. I also tried the teal and orange one, which is something like this. Here's the teal on this side, and here's the orange on this side. So you could basically do lots and lots of things. This is a different kind of light. I basically made a gradient from white to black. You can see that there is a difference between this and the first one, which was the simple white background. Let me show you. This is the plain white, and this is the gradient. It has a very different atmosphere to it. And I could also change it from this to this. So now it's on the other side, but I think it should be a bit smaller so you could really see it. Right. I think it was more visible on the other side. As I distance myself from it, you could see the effect much more clearly. Even though I'm not really in focus right now, I think. But I can make it smaller, so I could add more black. Only a sliver of white. And go closer. Or perhaps a sliver of light on this side. Here's a bit of a diagonal. Lots of white right now. Let me place the diagonal the other way. So the darkness is in the left lower corner and the brightness is in the top right corner right now. If I do the opposite, this is how it looks. If I do a gradient from top to bottom, where the darkness is below and the brightness is above, this is how it looks. And the opposite looks like this. So you could really do so many combinations. Any kind of photo editing software is great because you could control the exact amount of light and the exact color of the light. You could make it so that it suits your specific needs. I hope you learned a lot about light in this video. As you can see, there are no limits. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe because this is an ongoing series and there will be many other videos coming up soon. So you don't want to miss that. See you in the next video.